It's Apple versus the U.S. government in the battle over green bubbles.
Fight! All right, Mallett Head, this one's going to be a little bit more, on the intelligent side. Also, we may say some stuff that is not true because we're not lawyers. We know a lawyer. I chatted with him about this, but he's not here. He may come on in the future, but I think he has to talk to his employer to make sure it's okay that he comes on our little podcast here. So.
Well, if this is for the intelligent people, I'll sit this one out. I'll see you guys later.
Me too. Well, go ahead. All right. So essentially what's going on here is that the U.S. government has sued Apple. And what they're trying to say is that Apple is a monopoly, and monopolies aren't illegal.
It's a game.
Yeah.
Board game. No.
But they're saying that Apple is a monopoly because they've essentially done some things that make an uneven playing field, right? Mm-hmm. And so what they're trying to argue is that Apple has, through different policies that they have, especially surrounding the App Store, made it to where developers can't compete with their applications and their products on a level playing field because Apple is charging them more, or
because it's just too good.
They're essentially giving like preferential treatment to their own applications on their devices, like iPhones in particular. So one of the things that they focused in on is I think it's a 30% transaction charge every time that an application or a developer has a transaction through the App Store. So let's say that you have an application and you charge $100 for that application on the App Store. I think it's something like $30 of that goes to like taxes, but another $30 of that goes straight to Apple just for hosting your application on the iPhone. And so out of that $100, you get $40.
Poof.
Which makes
sounds not lucrative at all to have an app on Apple.
And that's kind of the argument, right? Is that through these practices, another thing that they did was the green bubbles. Like Merrick Garland, the AG of the United States, seemed really upset about these green bubbles on applications. But it's not just green bubbles, right? It's green bubbles, but it's also when you send a video to someone that has an Android, it looks like the video was shot on the very first iPhone ever. It's compressed and you can't really tell what's going on. There's just a lot of things like that. And essentially the broad overview of why the United States government is saying that Apple is being unfair is because of the Apple ecosystem and the Apple ecosystem's treatment of non-Apple products as they enter the ecosystem. So there are a lot of different ways this could go. These type of lawsuits take years and years and years and usually span over the different presidential not campaigns, but presidencies. Like usually it takes forever. I think, you know, Microsoft got sued like this, I think in the early 90s, maybe late 90s, sometime like that. Again, not lawyers, don't know. They got sued. For a long time, there was speculation that Microsoft was going to have to break up, as in they were going to have to become different companies and sell parts of it because they were a monopoly. But eventually Microsoft settled, paid a huge fine, and then changed their tune.
Yeah.
I think that's what's going to happen with Apple. But I do think that some things will change in the ecosystem that we know and love, such as green bubbles.
Well, I know they had done something about that recently, though, right? It was, I don't know. I could be thinking of something else. I thought they were trying to make it to where, or it was the FaceTime stuff, right?
Oh, I don't know. What's up with the FaceTime stuff?
I think this was in a recent update or something, and I could be wrong. But for Apple, you can send an Android user a link to a FaceTime deal, and they can go to that link and then do FaceTime, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know that it required like an Apple ID or anything like that. Again, I didn't experiment with this. My whole family uses iPhone. You're welcome. You know, so I think they were making moves. Now, was it a very backwards way of doing things? Absolutely. They're
Yeah.
trying to make it very hard for an Android user to do things with Apple users.
And there's a sense of shame too about it, right? Like if you're an Apple user and you're texting your buddy and it's a green bubble, you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
Uh, Merrick Garland in the video, maybe you can pull this. I'll try to send it to you if we have
Yeah.
time. This is Easter weekend, so we might not have it in here.
In 2022, Apple's CEO was asked whether Apple would fix iPhone to Android messaging. The questioner added, quote, "Not to make it personal, but I can't send my mom certain videos," close quote. Apple's CEO responded, "Buy your mom an iPhone."
There was a story that he told about, I think someone's grandma like couldn't get good videos of their grandchildren because she had an Android phone. And
Well, grandma
someone
just needs an iPhone.
That's
That's just a whole lot easier, bro.
that was the response that Tim Cook gave.
Yeah.
Tim Cook was like, or I think that the person asked the question was like, what would you say to my grandma that like can't see their grandchildren because she decided to buy a different phone? And Tim Cook's response was, buy grandma an iPhone.
That's it.
But that's been their shtick. Create
Mhm.
the ecosystem, make it very hard to leave the ecosystem.
Yes.
And everything will just work perfectly. But if you really want to interact with those Android users and the people that didn't buy iPhones, we're going to make it ugly and gross. And like your videos are going to look bad and your bubbles are going to be green.
Mhm.
So I understand where the US government is coming from as far as this like unfair advantage that Apple has with their own products.
No, Apple's not playing well with others.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
The other thing that they're worried about is like the wallet. Like, do you use Apple Wallet?
Yeah.
So,
Well, kind of, but yeah.
so the way that Apple Wallet works is it like it brings your credit card or your debit card into the Apple Wallet. And that's the only place that you can access a digital wallet in Apple. There are no third-party apps to do that. Apple will not allow it. So that means that if something goes wrong with Apple Wallet, all of your information's in there instead of like, say, like a Chase, a Chase digital wallet,
I did hear, and again, this is only hearsay,
Mhm.
but the rumor is that the newest iOS update has made it a lot easier for people to hack the wallet. So I don't know what the issue is there, or if even is an issue, but I mean, there is the potential for, hackers, however they do it, NFC technology. You pass by a dude with a briefcase where he's got the wireless signal and he's gonna rip all your stuff out of your phone.
Right. And I'm not a lawyer, but that makes me think about like, okay, so that happens. Who's liable? Is the
Yeah.
liability only with Apple now?
Mhm.
Because it's not like, I bank through Chase. Chase didn't create the app.
Yeah.
So Chase can just go, well, Apple didn't make their stuff secure. So why is that on us?
Yep.
Who should have to pay that?
Yep.
It gets really interesting. I think that Apple has been doing this to themselves over the course of many, many, many years, and it potentially could come home to roost.
Mhm.
We've seen this with the USB-C on their devices for a long time. Apple not only had their own charging port, they would change the charging port so that you had to continue to buy new
Mhm.
wires. I mean, you can see a pattern, a consistent pattern of Apple trying to squeeze as much money as they can out of their consumers.
Well, and they've been able to do it because the general populace, like Apple users, will, I mean, let's be honest, follow them like sheep,
Sure. Yeah.
because their stuff works, because it works so well together, all the ecosystem and everything. Oh, well, you want to have all these fantastic features? Well, you're going to have to pay for it, and then you're going to have to get the correct charging ports, the correct bricks. What they did, the USB-C transition with the iPads and the newer iPhones, right?
Because
But
of a lawsuit in the EU.
well,
They did not want to do it.
well, so but didn't they make it to where like the Apple USB-C chargers
Oh, yeah.
charge better?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like They're like, we're still going to make it to where that if you get the Apple brand, it's going to work better.
And
I don't know
is
how, but
that's the argument that the United States government is making, is that they do this with everything, especially apps. So you can develop an application that does the same thing as an Apple product, for instance, messaging or wallets. But if you put it on here, we're going to take a 30% Apple tax for even putting it on our device. And we're going to make it to where it doesn't work as well. So there's not actual like real competition there.
yeah.
And that's what you can't do. You can have a monopoly, but you have to have like a fair monopoly. It has to be on the merits.
Yeah.
They're arguing this isn't on the merits. And even though you said that, Apple people are sheep, freaking I am a freaking sheep over here. I love Apple. I kind of agree that I get it. I get why they're coming after Apple this way.
Yeah. That's always been my argument against Apple, because I wasn't always Apple, right? I have a MacBook, iPhone, AirPods, the whole nine now. But back whenever we met, I was very much an Android guy. And it was because Apple was so expensive. I had to buy all the Apple stuff. That's still my argument.
Yeah.
Now, will I buy it? Yeah, because I have all the Apple stuff. But that's the sucky part about it. It's like, oh, you want to get an Apple product? Well, then you're gonna have to buy the extra stuff.
And all the Apple stuff works very well generally, right? Like in general, Apple is smooth and it just seems like it goes through like a more rigorous testing product or process. But it makes sense that it would be smoother if they're punishing the people that are competing against them. Right?
Yeah.
So I don't have much of an argument for Apple here. I mean, I hope that Apple doesn't get broken up because I enjoy the ecosystem. But one of the coolest things that's happened to Apple, I think, in the past 5 years is the move to USB-Cs. It's made my life better. I don't have to worry about 3 or 4 different types of cables.
I need to upgrade all my stuff. Well, I say all my stuff. My phone is the last thing that doesn't use USB-C. I need it because the USB-C is so much better than the Lightning port.
I think, what do I have? I have one Apple device and I can't remember. Oh, my AirPods. My AirPods have the Lightning cable and I just hate it. I hate that they ever did it, and I hate that it's a thing.
You don't use the wireless? Do you have the wireless charging AirPods? You don't use wireless ones?
I do, but I have like a little, I was going to see if I have like a little case on them, and the case, it doesn't,
I got you.
It's not a case. And so the charging
probably why
doesn't work right.
It doesn't work. That's funny.
So this seems like a bad thing for Apple. Apple has the money to settle eventually. Apple has claimed that they're going to fight this tooth and nail. We'll see. We'll see what happens there. I think they're probably going to settle like Microsoft did.
Yeah.
My hope for this, to kind of round this conversation out, is that Apple starts playing more nicely with other developers.
Yeah.
And it becomes better products for us. It becomes more of a modular iPhone than an ecosystem only iPhone. I want that experience to where I can stay in the ecosystem, but then I can jump out of it and jump back in and out and in.
Yeah, because I mean, at this point, we're both trapped in the ecosystem. Like, I'd have to completely redo my entire workflow if I wanted to switch, which ain't happening. I'm not doing it.
I'm severing my ties a little bit, though. I don't use Final Cut anymore.
Well, yeah.
I don't use Logic. I mean, I kind of use Logic a little bit, but I don't use it as much. When I record, I use Pro Tools now. So I'm starting to sever.
Well, I'm talking about just like having Apple devices, you know, like all that stuff working well together. I don't use Final Cut or anything. I use Adobe to edit. So
do you ever think about the days before our messages went onto all of our devices?
I remember whenever I first got my first MacBook, and I didn't have an iPhone. And I had an Android still. And so I was like, man, it would be pretty freaking sweet if I can text off of my MacBook now that I have a MacBook. So then I switched to iPhone. And then it was like, oh, this is what life is like on the other side.
there are days now where I wish that it wasn't connected. And I know you can disconnect it, but I just don't.
Mhm.
But there are days now when it's like when I'm getting a lot of like work text messages or not like
Mhm.
work text messages, but it's like a lot of text messages. Maybe I don't
Yeah.
want to see all of the text messages, you know. Maybe you've sent me a ton of text messages about Deaton Street. I just don't want to hear about Deaton Street anymore, you know. It's probably reverse, honestly, but uh I kind of miss that. I miss the separation. And so even though I say I love the ecosystem, you know,
Mhm.
maybe it'd be good
I
if we didn't have it as much.
Yeah. I kinda do that with, camera stuff. Sure, I could take video and pictures with my phone. I'd rather leave that in my pocket
Yeah.
and then take my camera.
Yeah. I wish we didn't have phones. I hate my phone. I hate it.
But we need it. We need it to like, survive
Do we?
for whatever reason. I mean,
When I was in middle school, I was fine without it.
I was, but I didn't have to go anywhere. I just had to go to middle school, and that was it.
True.
I had everything to worry about.
Can you VFX my like beard to go like super gray right now and like go straight on like just complaining old
Right?
guy about this? I remember when my first ever long trip, right?
Uh-huh.
My first ever long trip was from Liberty, Texas to Giddings, Texas to see my great grandparents and my grandmother, which is ironically kind of the area that I live in right now, right? So,
Yeah.
but it was my first long trip. I had a cell phone, but it was like one of those like brick phones that you could never destroy.
You play
throw it.
Snake on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I printed out MapQuest directions. And like as I was driving to get there, because this is my first long trip driving by myself, I would have to like go through. I remember taking a trip to Washington, D.C. And driving home. My dad had a map, like a map,
Oh, yeah.
and making sure that he had all the connections. So we could live without this stuff. We could live without
Oh,
the
we
ecosystem.
definitely could. We could. There are too many arguments that would go for that, idea, living without. Like, you're almost off the grid at that point,
Mm-hmm.
It would be nice to not have to worry about having the world at your fingertips.
Doom scrolling. Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Anyway,
So I think what we've decided here is that not only should the U.S. government go after Apple, they should go after all of the tech companies and make it to where we're not allowed to have cell phones anymore, and we have to go back to MapQuest.
yes.
The
Well,
good
then
old
if we
days.
MapQuest, then we'll have to even get on the computer and print it out. Oh my God, we have to disconnect completely. I'm moving to the woods.
You kind of already live in the woods, my dude.
No,
Kind of.
a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Well, what do you think about all this?
Yeah.
Do you think the U.S. government has standing here? Listen to me say standing like I'm a lawyer. Do they have standing? Are you excited about the ecosystem getting broken up, and will more application developers come to Apple if those Apple taxes go away or get smaller?
Hmm.
All right.
Huh?
Thanks for watching. Peace.
Thanks. See ya.